Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 24, and we would be reading from verse 11. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. How to deal with rumors. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you guys were on mute here. So yes, Assalamu alaikum everyone. We'll be reading now from Surah 24, verse 11. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. How to deal with rumors and unproven accusations. A gang among you produced a big lie. Do not think that it was bad for you. Instead, it was good for you. Meanwhile, each one of them has earned a share of the guilt. As for the one who initiated the whole incident, he has incurred a terrible retribution. When you heard it, the believing men and believing women should have had better thoughts about themselves and should have said, "This is obviously a big lie. Only if they produced 4 witnesses, you may believe them. If they fail to produce 4 witnesses, then they are, according to God, liars. If it were not for God's grace towards you and His mercy in this world and in the hereafter, you would have suffered a great retribution because of this incident. You fabricated it with your tongues, and the rest of you repeated it with your mouths without proof. You thought it was simple when it was, according to God, gross." So, as the subtitle suggests, these verses are placed in the Quran to guide us and to teach us how to deal with accusations that are unproven and rumors that are spread among the people. As we know, people spread rumors for various personal gains, and therefore, it is wise for us to not be a part, not be an instrument in spreading those rumors further. Like if you want to, just let it go. You don't have to investigate rumors, right? But God says, before you believe anything, you have to verify it, and the way to verify these types of rumors, God has already given a system, which is, to have 4 witnesses, and so the thing is, let's say someone comes to you and says, like so-and-so is committing adultery or is having an extramarital affair, by the way, we just recently happened, someone, came up to me and told me about someone having some extramarital relations, and, the thing is now, if you want to verify it, how would you even verify it, right? If you don't care about the situation, you can just let it go, but if you want to believe it, you can't believe it without having witnesses, right? And so if there are no witnesses, it can't be proven. And how would you even go about finding witnesses? Of course you have to do your investigation, and if you go ahead and the reason why you wouldn't have to look for witnesses, because the people who are involved, if they have actually committed it, they're not going to accept it, because of the shame that is involved, the public humiliation in just even accepting that something like this is going on. And then also, if they haven't done it, they're not going to say they did it, which wouldn't make any sense either. So you need witnesses, right? And so, how would you go about finding out if there are witnesses? You have to find out, you have to probably even talk about it. But the thing is that even how you even go about it is important, right? If you go about it telling people, hey, this is going on, no, that would be wrong, because you're just spreading exactly what God is saying. But, if you're trying to figure out, finding out if people have witnessed anything of that nature, then that's probably not the same. But nevertheless, God is telling us that we can't believe such things and accept them as facts and spread them forward unless we have verified it. And the way to verify it is to have these types of rumors is to have 4 witnesses. And God says, if the people who are bringing this information, if they don't have 4 witnesses, then we shouldn't believe it, right? And I think that should just end it, right? If a person is telling you something of that nature, I mean, you should ask them, like, are there other witnesses that were there? Like, did you find other people? And now that person cannot go around and start telling other people and say, okay, these are, I'm looking for witnesses, so I'm telling you guys, if you have seen anything like that. But I mean, if he already has witnesses that people had just happened to be there that witnessed it, I mean, that's separate, right? And so that is, otherwise, you just don't believe the person, and you don't spread it further. God says, because it's not good for your soul. So of course, may God forgive us, for any mistakes we may have done, and if we have acted poorly, when we've been presented such information. Sometimes it may be, Satan may tempt us to spread it forward for whatever reason he may bring up, but we have to know that, we have to follow God's laws. And people who do these types of things, whether true or false, like, it doesn't really, we don't really gain much out of it anyways. And it doesn't matter to us, if there are hypocrites around us and they're doing these things, we don't care. I mean, they will get their share anyways. But, we bringing it forward without witnesses or anything like that, might be bad for us, right? As God said in the Quran, because other people could be lying too. I mean, just because someone is a disbeliever or a hypocrite doesn't necessarily mean that the news that some other person is bringing to you about that person committing adulteries has to be right too. So we have to be careful on our part and make sure that we don't break God's law when it comes to that. But this is talking about adultery, right? So specifically adultery. But for example, if someone's having like, just maybe like a platonic affair or something like that, I mean, you don't need witnesses for that because there's not much to witness in that type of situation. But yeah, if it comes to, committing adultery, as we see was the case in the Quran, that they created a big lie about Aisha. It says in the footnote, it says this refers to a historical incident where the Prophet's wife Aisha was left in the desert by mistake and later found by a young man who helped her catch up with the Prophet's caravan. This triggered the famous big lie against Aisha. So, so this was the wife of Prophet Muhammad. So you can see, God has even, given a very special responsibility to the wives of the Prophet because they were role models, and it was very important. God says, they'll double the retribution for them, if they, went on the wrong path and stuff like that. And so it was very critical, for maybe the people. It was in their favor to, present this type of information against her, to maybe, defame submission at the time and people who were embracing submission, and to damage the reputation of the Prophet as well as his wife, and so basically, people who wanted to do character assassination, which is very common when, people don't want to follow a certain religious ideology, they try to assassinate the person's character by spreading rumors and lies about them. And so this is what happened. And so God says that, we shouldn't do that. And people who did that, incurred their share, and especially the people who initiated the incident, they ended up getting the biggest, share because of it. It says the one who initiated the whole incident has incurred a terrible retribution. So the person who came up with this lie, obviously, that's why it's important to understand a situation when we see something, to someone else, it appeared like maybe, she was maybe on some kind of a, date or something, right? But obviously the reality was that she was lost, and, someone found him and he was, trying to help her go back, and there's nothing wrong with that. So this is a lesson for us, and there's a reason why God has put these things for us in the Quran, for us to reflect on it and make sure that we don't fall in any type of traps from Satan. What to do? Verse 16, when you heard it, you should have said, we will not repeat this. Glory be to you, this is a gross falsehood. God admonishes you that you shall never do it again if you are believers. God thus explains the revelations for you. God is omniscient, wise. Those who love to see immorality spread among the believers have incurred a painful retribution in this life and the hereafter. God knows while you do not know. God showers you with his grace and mercy. God is most kind towards the believers, most merciful. So God says that those who love to see immorality spread among the believers have incurred a painful retribution. So how would this spread immorality? Also because it would kind of desensitize other people towards this type of behavior, and they'll be like, okay, so the prophet's wife is doing this, so we can do it too, right? And we can go cheat on our husbands, for example, or things like that, So they sort of, try to use it to also, spread more immorality among the people, as if like they're not already immoral enough. And, God tells us that we have to be careful, and God says he showers us with grace. God says he showers you with his grace and mercy. God is most kind towards the believers, most merciful, right? So we understand these are God's qualities. So if you want God to be most kind, God is already kind and most merciful, right? But if you want to experience it like fully, become a submitter, become righteous, become someone who worships God alone, sincerely, and then you will see how when God, is so kind and so merciful, he takes care of the believers and makes sure that they are protected and they're happy, and nothing bad happens to them. So this is God's grace. The devil encourages baseless accusations. Verse 21. O you who believe, do not follow the steps of Satan. Anyone who follows the steps of Satan should know that he advocates evil and vice. If it were not for God's grace towards you and his mercy, none of you would have been purified. But God purifies whomever he wills. God is hearer nor. Those among you who are blessed with resources and wealth shall be charitable towards their relatives, the poor and those who have immigrated for the sake of God. They shall treat them with kindness and tolerance. Do you not love to attain God's forgiveness? God is forgiver, most merciful. And it says, a gross sin. Surely those who falsely accuse married women who are pious believers have incurred condemnation in this life and in the hereafter. They have incurred a horrendous retribution. So when we see that the devil encourages people to, accuse people without any basis, right? Baseless accusations. And so when you see someone indulging in this type of behavior, like baselessly accusing you of something that you didn't do, you should know that this is coming from Satan, that this person is, in fact, following the steps of Satan. So it's nothing good about a person who is accusing someone baselessly of something that they haven't done. And we see that's a very common behavior in the world. People do it for various reasons, for personal gains, for political gains, to get people to do what they want. There's many reasons, right? And so God says that anyone who follows the steps of Satan should know that he only advocates evil and vice. And God purifies whomever he wills, and God says if he will, none of us would have been purified, God brought a lot of us into submission. A lot of us were idol worshippers prior to becoming submitters. And it was God who guided us and, helped us realized that what we were doing was going to lead us to hell, and he purified us, right? But the devil is not happy with that, and he doesn't want people to go to heaven, and so he's always trying things like that, and especially people who want to be submitters or on their way to submission or in the process of redeeming themselves while on the path of submission. He tries his very best to get those people off the path as in whatever way he can. So he comes up with all these kinds of tricks in his up his sleeve, to try to divert people from God's path, and all kinds of accusations are thrown at the believers also in this process, as we can learn from the Quran. Aisha, who was one of the most pious women at the time of Muhammad, and was his wife. People started, creating horrendous lies about her, and we know that it's all from Satan. And then the second thing is, it also says that those who accuse married women of things like that obviously have incurred a horrendous retribution, and we understand why. Like, this is such an evil behavior. How people will try to tarnish the reputation of someone in the society by spreading these lies. We shouldn't care what people say, but when people start spreading lies about other people and starts affecting their judgment, ideally these people should not believe these lies without having witnesses, right? So this shouldn't really be an issue, but because people do, it's an evil thing to do, to try to demonize someone who hasn't done anything wrong. And God is just letting us know that there's things like that will happen, and we should expect things like that to happen, and we should be wary, and we should be cautious of all the schemes of Satan. And then also, verse 22 is reminding us to be charitable. If we are blessed, it says, those among you who are blessed with resources and wealth, right? So if you're blessed with resources, if you're blessed with wealth by God, mind you, this is using the word blessed, right? So, sometimes people always use money or having more money in a negative sense, but these are still provisions, whatever amount they are in, small or large, our provisions are blessing from God, So first we have to acknowledge that all the provisions that God has given us are blessings from Him, And so to those people that, God has blessed them with resources and wealth, shall be charitable towards the other people, right? And it says the relatives first, the relatives come first, people who are your immediate relatives, your parents, your siblings, your other close relatives, the poor people that are around you, and those who have immigrated for the sake of God, So we have to remember that, people don't, people would normally think about relatives maybe, and they would think about the poor people, but people normally don't talk about those who have immigrated for the sake of God, right? This is also very important, because someone who immigrates for the sake of God, has to start over from scratch, and it's not easy, and they're doing it all for the sake of God. They could live comfortably otherwise, but they decide to strive and move, and so speaking of that, we're told that if we're in a place where we're not able to worship God freely, we're not able to exercise our complete freedom of religion, we're not able to speak about our religion, we should immigrate. This is God's commandment, and we also have verses in the Quran where not doing that is while you have the resources, while you have, it's not talking about people who don't have the resources, but people who are able to immigrate and they still decide not to. They are, God says, they're apathetic, and those people are caught on the day of judgment, on the day when they're leaving this world, they die in a state of wronging their souls, and the, angels will ask them, like, what was wrong with you, like, and so we have to remember that, this is also God's commandment, And God promises that people who do that, God will look after them. He'll take care of them. If they're poor, God will bless them with resources. But as people who are on the outside, looking at these people who are immigrating, I mean, their responsibility is to help them, right? So it's a test, nevertheless, for the person who's going through this, but also it's also a test for other people who they're immigrating to, right? How they respond to that. When someone's poor and they're in a situation where they need help, they're probably going through their tests, right? But then other people are also going through their tests to see how they respond to that. So it's a two-sided thing, and we should always look at it as such. And then, especially, we're told that all these people, they shall treat them with kindness and tolerance, right? So people that you help, you shall treat them with kindness and tolerance. Also, because God says that if you give charities and you follow them by insult and reproach, and there's many ways that Satan can tempt people to do that, especially when people are charitable. It becomes very easy for them to target those that they may have helped, and they have like this some sort of I'd say some kind of resentment, that after they give these people the money, like they feel that it's like they feel that they stole their money or something, and they feel like they have the right to treat them badly or disrespect them in some way. And God says that this is a way that basically people can nullify their charities, right? And we don't want to do that. And so we have to be very careful. And especially a person who is in such a position is very in a sort of a vulnerable position when they're not socially in a position where they're able to fend for themselves, and it's kind of like sort of like an embarrassing thing for them to go through, or even to be in a situation where they have to accept charity, and so we have to make them feel comfortable, and we have to give them the same respect that we give to other people, so they don't feel like they're not important members, or they somewhat feel like they're lesser than anybody else. And we should treat them equally, right? As you treat a rich person, you treat the poor person the same way. But all these people, we're supposed to always treat them with kindness and tolerance. So people who are poor, people who are our relatives, people who have immigrated for the sake of God, we should treat them with kindness and tolerance. These are God's commandments. And God says, do you not love to attain God's forgiveness? God is forgiver, most merciful. So moving on, God willing, to verse 24, God says, the day will come when their own tongues, hands, and feet will bear witness to everything they had done. On that day, God will requite them fully for their works, and they will find out that God is the truth. The bad women for the bad men, and the bad men for the bad women, and the good men and the good women for the good men, and the good men for the good women. The latter are innocent of such accusations. They have attained forgiveness and a generous reward. So obviously, on the day of judgment, we'll have our videotape, and our hands, feet, and tongues will bear witness. By playing that videotape, we will be able to see everything, and our tongues, hands and feet will be able to be witness against us through everything that we did in our lives. So this is a reminder for us, and God says people were requited for everything they had done. And then in verse 26, God, talks about how God pairs the good men with the good women and the bad women with the bad men, right? So if you're a good person, if you're a good submitter, you deserve to have a spouse or a companion, just like your jinn companion is better than, a companion of, some kind of a hypocrite or disbeliever. who have devil companions, also in the same way, like, God will give you a partner, a spouse also, someone who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, right? Imagine it wouldn't be fair for the most part, if someone's very righteous and then they have to live with like the most evil person, right? And so that you have a good person and then you have a bad person living together, and they can't possibly be happy in that sort of an arrangement, So God ties the good souls with the good, with other good souls. Of course, there are exceptions where, things may happen. For example, we understand that Lot's wife betrayed him and Noah's wife betrayed him, but eventually, God, fixed the situation, by annihilating those women, So, God wanted them to have a peace and happiness in their lives, So, this is another important, part of, wanting for us to remember that how important it is to be good. If you're righteous, God willing, God will give you a righteous person to match with, and if you're a bad person, a hypocrite, most likely you're going to be matched with a person of the same kind. And God says the righteous people are innocent of these types of accusations that we discussed earlier regarding adultery and such. Divine etiquette, verse 27. O you who believe, do not enter homes other than yours without permission from their inhabitants and without greeting them. This is better for you that you may take heed. If you find no one in them, do not enter them until you obtain permission. If you are told, go back, you must go back. This is purer for you. God is fully aware of everything. So we're being told that, any home that is not ours, we should not enter without permission from the people who are living there, right? You can't barge in other words, into someone else's house. That's just, not good etiquette, good mannerism, And God says this is better for you. And God says if you find no one in them, do not enter them until you obtain permission. Even if you find no one in them, do not enter until you obtain permission and from their inhabitants, So, and without greeting them. Okay, so this is better for you that you may take heed. And we see, like, sometimes, like, people who might be relatives and such will probably not respect that because they may feel comfortable just going in. But we're told we shouldn't be doing that. We should be responsible. There may be things in their homes that, they were not expecting you to come or to just barge in. So just wait until you're given permission, right? Even if, let's say, someone invites you to their house, and then you just sort of walk in, without them knowing. Let's say, someone expecting guests, and then the guests just show up, and they don't find anybody, and they just start walking inside, and then they find that the other person's not ready or prepared, or it's some kind of embarrassing situation, or whatever the case may be. You have to get permission, right? I think some people will know what I'm talking about here, but one time, I was invited to stay with some people, and then I was in my hotel room, and then they just decided to, I opened the door and they decided to just barge in without asking me, and I was just completely unprepared and shocked, so it's kind of like a similar situation, someone shows up at your door, you open the door and they just decide to barge in. No, you have to, even if I'm standing in front of you, you have to ask my permission. Hey, can I come in? Is it okay? And so this is God, giving us etiquette, talking, telling us to have good mannerism, and that should just come to us, I guess, without even knowing these verses. But God is kind enough, and this Quran is complete and detailed enough that God is, telling us how to do these things, right? And, for our own benefit. So, now the fact that it's in the Quran, we understand that, we're held accountable for these things. If you break these commandments, you're held responsible, so it's going to be a sin if you just don't care, right? Is it going to be as big of a sin as drinking alcohol, committing adultery? Most likely not, right? But still, you're breaking God's commandments. You're disregarding God's commandments and ignoring, His revelation. So we shouldn't be doing that. And then God says, "You commit no error by entering uninhabited homes wherein there is something that belongs to you. God knows everything you reveal and everything you conceal." So any homes that are not inhabited, where no one lives, but where there is something that belongs to you. Let's say the postman came and dropped your package at some wrong address, and nobody lives there. So that's fine. I mean, that home is uninhabited. You can go and pick it up, right? In other words, and there's no inhabitants to ask for permission, so that's totally fine. Dress code for the believers. Tell the believing men that they shall subdue their eyes and not stare at the women, and to maintain their chastity. This is purer for them. God is fully cognizant of everything they do. And tell the believing women to subdue their eyes and maintain their chastity. They shall not reveal any parts of their bodies except that which is necessary. They shall cover their chests and shall not relax this code in the presence of other than their husbands, their fathers, the fathers of their husbands, their sons, the sons of their husbands, their brothers, the sons of their brothers, the sons of their sisters, other women, the male servants or employees whose sexual drive has been nullified, or the children who have not reached puberty. They shall not strike their feet when they walk in order to shake and reveal certain details of their bodies. All of you shall repent to God, O you believers, that you may succeed. And then the footnote says, dressing modestly, therefore, is a trait of the believing men and women. The minimum requirements for a woman's dress is to lengthen her garment, see 3359, and to cover her chest. Tyrannical Arab traditions have given a false impression that a woman must be covered from head to toe. Such is not a Quranic or Islamic dress. Okay, so starting with dress code. Okay, first of all, so God says that women should dress modestly and men should dress modestly, but that does not mean what we see in the today's world, these tyrannical people, the tyrannical Arab traditions that force women to cover themselves from head to toes. And if you look at the world, it seems like it's going backwards. All these people in these so-called Islamic countries who used to be like openly dressed are now covering their bodies more and more and more as time goes on. And in certain countries like Afghanistan, for example, like you can't even see their eyes. And in Saudi Arabia, like you can barely see their eyes, and in other countries, like you can see their faces, but you can't see anything besides their faces. Everything is whole body from head to toe is covered, and if they see any parts like a hair or something like that, like they will reprimand or try to discipline, or sometimes even imprison people for not following the dress code. And as you can see, as you know, from the news and media, like in Iran, for example, a woman who was protesting against it, took off her headscarf and stuff like that, and then she was murdered. And it's like a common occurrence, And same with the Taliban, in Afghanistan, for example, doing the exact same thing, and they would do things like that. But we understand, and especially women, even in America, you see them convert to Islam, and they feel so proud that now they're wearing hijab, and they feel like, I'm so close to God now. But obviously, they're just being fooled by Satan into thinking that they're doing something righteous, but it's just setting a bad example. And God doesn't want women to do that. God doesn't want to oppress women in any way, or make them feel uncomfortable about themselves. But we do have a minimum dress code, as we know, that we are supposed to, for the women, is that they're supposed to lengthen their garments and they're supposed to cover their chest. Now, it's important to say, to mention here that the minimum requirements for a woman's dress is to lengthen her garment and to cover her chest, right? So even though the commandment for dressing modestly is important for both men and women, but they're different in terms of what their minimum criteria is and what their requirements are, right? Women, as part of their requirements, they also have to cover their chests, but men don't have such a requirement as a minimum requirement, but there are people who refer to themselves as submitters and promoting this idea that men also have to cover their chest as a minimum requirement. Of course, it's not something like normal, I'm not saying that men shouldn't wear shirts, but just saying that the minimum requirement about covering the chest, applies only to women. And men can also, or should also dress modestly though, and God says that both of them should subdue their eyes and not stare, right? And it's interesting because I've heard like so many interesting interpretations of what staring means to some people, but we should not be staring at them. And I think you don't have to redefine what staring is. Staring is staring, and we all know it's wrong. If you stare at someone, it makes them feel uncomfortable, and obviously, people are doing that for the wrong reasons, and people should not be doing that. It's part of our morality. It's part of God purifying us and keeping us away from things like adultery and helping us maintain our chastity. And then for women, God says that they shall not reveal any parts of their bodies except that which is necessary. So when it says except that which is necessary, in certain cases, it may be necessary for you to definitely, maybe expose your arms or your legs or your hands, but for example, if you're swimming, it's different, right? I mean, it's necessary for you to be able to have free motion, and so you can't expect women to be dressed in the same way as they would dress outside when going grocery shopping, for example, right? So this, they have to bear them in mind. That's why there's a minimum dress, and then there is a regular requirement of not revealing anything unnecessary, but also the requirement to lengthen your garments, so not wear mini skirts and things like that expose the rest of your body. And basically the whole idea is also to prevent them from being insulted and things like that, right, by other men. And also then the last verse, it says, encourage marriage to discourage immorality. You shall encourage those of you who are single to get married. They may marry the righteous among your male and female servants. If they are poor, God will enrich them from His grace. God is bounteous knower. Okay, so actually before we go into that, God also talks about the dress code that God has described. God says that the women can relax. They shall cover their chests and shall not relax this dress code in the presence of other than their husbands, their fathers, the fathers of their husbands, etc. Right? So all these people that are mentioned here, in those cases, the dress code could be relaxed. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't care, but it means that there could be circumstances where you may have to relax that dress code, and God says it's fine. But other than these people, women have to be super cautious and try to dress modestly, try to be righteous. But nevertheless, they don't have to dress like the tyrannical Arabs. Just be modest. Don't be too revealing. Cover your chest and lengthen your garments. That's all the requirement is. God has made the religion simple, and people try to make it complicated. And basically, it's a way to repel women from accepting submission. Because if women find out that the Quran doesn't have such restrictions, more women will accept submission, right? And many women will read the Quran and come to these verses, and then come to the tyrannical Muhammadan interpretation of wearing hijab and covering yourself, and then they'll just throw it away. You don't want to dress like ninjas, or just be or dress in a way like it could be like hot in certain places. It could be very uncomfortable, and also it's like a way of not everyone's comfortable with sharing their beliefs and sharing their ideas, and this idea of identifying your religion with a symbol of something that you wear is also kind of like, it gives people the impression that you think that you're better than them, right? And so it's best that God didn't impose any certain requirements, like we don't have to wear some kind of a special dress or something that identify us as submitters, and of course by women wearing hijab, they're constantly identified as Muslims, right? And then it just gives a bad name, because like, why would God want women to dress like that? It doesn't make any sense. So anyways, so about the verse 32, God willing, we can talk about it more. About the verse 32, God says, encourage marriage to discourage immorality, right? So God says, those among you who are single, you shall encourage those among you who are single to get married. So it's important to understand what this means, right? Because if you misunderstand this, you could just be pressuring people into just rushing into marriage with someone they don't even love, right? So the thing is, for someone to be married, they have to have someone that they actually like, right? Someone that God, puts some kind of attraction for them, that they can get to know them and get married first, right? And secondly, they have to be in a position where they are financially, in a position to take care of the person. God says, because if you can't, it's better for you to be patient, until you find yourself in a position where you're able to take care of someone. Imagine, like, if you can't take care of yourself, maybe you're in some financial crunch, or in a position where you can barely make enough money to support yourself, and then you tie it into with another person, and then you have other expenses, and then the other person suffering. You bring her out of her home, and then you're not able to provide for her, and it's a hardship. So God doesn't want us to do that either. So it should not be rushed in a way. But yeah, those people among you who are single, who meet that criteria of one being in a position where they like someone, or could like someone, and in a position where they are financially able to support them, yeah, those people should be encouraged, and they should be encouraged to discourage immorality, right? So if you see that they're in a position where they're able to fend for themselves and could maybe support another person, and there may be someone that they could be attracted to, or they might be attracted to, you discourage any sort of immoral behavior by encouraging them to get involved in the process of formalizing their relationship, to get engaged and to get married, rather than committing something like adultery or something like that, right? And so that is the idea, but people definitely take it the wrong way, and as we know, people force their children or people close to them to get married at a very young age, thinking that they're following God's law, because God says you should encourage marriage, but people have to be also at a marriageable age as well, right? It's like, people just reach puberty and then they're try to get them married to someone, and that's definitely wrong, right? Because your bodies may be physiologically mature, but you also have to be mentally and emotionally ready for a relationship, and this is also very important. So we have to remember that. So, and the messenger also talks about it in one of his sermons, God willing. You can watch that too. And so God says, if they're poor, God will enrich them from His grace. God is bounteous nor. So if they are in a situation where these people are poor, God will enrich them. But still, like, while they are poor, they can't go and find someone. Let's say you're homeless, right? And you go and find another woman, and now she's homeless with you. So that doesn't help. So with this, God willing, I will end, and if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah, a great study. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, thank you. These are, you can hear the seals, huh?
Yeah, there were some very good points brought up, brother. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, one that stuck out to me or is kind of interesting is that there's people that, or they're saying that the men have to follow the same dress code.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, literally, it's just like, I mean, we have tons of examples about how the messenger calls people out. He said, "This is what God says, right in the Quran," and then there's other people that form their own opinions and deviate. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really funny, you know. So like, when you'd go to their picnics and stuff, all like say on the beach or the pool, like all the men were expected to wear t-shirts in the water.
yeah, that's just that's un-Quranic, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's as
it's an
simple as that.
innovation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a complete innovation, and like under the guise of being righteous, you know, because that's what Satan. I mean, we know that he
Mhm.
comes from the
Mhm.
obvious some angles, like from the
Mhm.
left or from the front, whatever.
Mhm.
I guess
Yeah.
those two could have different meanings. Like, okay, don't drink, don't do, don't commit adultery, but then he'll bring other people to the extreme,
Mhm.
where they're committing innovations just like this, and it's basically, to me, what it sounds like is them saying they know better than God.
Mhm.
It's like the same with the wudu. I mean, if you want to wear a shirt, that's fine. But if you're doing it as a religious law, I mean, the same.
Mhm.
I mean, that's I mean, it's becoming. I mean, which they are doing
Mhm.
as I guess religious doctrine.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's like some of the verses. It's um, how it calls a gross sin. You know, it's not
Mhm.
just like a regular sin, but it's a gross sin
Mhm.
for those who falsely accuse married women who are pious believers and submitters. And God even says that they've incurred condemnation in this world and
Mhm.
the next life. uses the word horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, it's like even we're told to not pay attention to this stuff, but it could still nonetheless could stir. It's just stirring up falsehood, and and like people, it hurts people, reputation, and as you said, like character assassination. These are serious things,
Mm-hmm.
But mashallah, it's like the Quran is so great in that respect because it goes into such detail about the etiquette and all these so everything. It's fully detailed.
Yeah, and it's important that to point out that obviously the lie that it's talking about in this example, the lie was about her committing adultery, right? But then people could be promoting lies about other people, totally baseless lies, making up stuff that is just as bad, right? So, like for example, I think you guys all know, right? Like some people. Started promoting this lie about the submission app, right? And they were saying that the submission app was being used to track the location of the submitters around the world, and that I was selling that data to the CIA, right?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and so completely baseless, right? And just someone decides it's more convenient because they came up with their own app and they want to put users on their app, and discourage people from using submission app. And then they come up with this idea, and then they don't. And then, it's so ridiculous.
It's really ridiculous.
Yeah, and never took it back,
Yeah. That's a crime. You could even like the law of this country. I'm sure a lot of other countries too. Like if you wanted to, you could prosecute for somebody. So just like the grossness of that is a serious accusation. Like they could just get in trouble just with this legal system. So. God tells us how bad these things are as well.
Yeah, you could have a defamation lawsuit for someone.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah. Present that as evidence. Yeah. Yeah, make a quick million.
Right. Easy money.
Yeah.
MashaAllah, it's divine etiquette. O you who believe, do not enter homes other than yours without permission from their inhabitants and without greeting them. This is better for you that you may take heed. But yeah, this is like a good commandment, and like you said, God tells us in the Quran, so it's something we're held responsible for. But even outside of like maybe before reading this is something that I guess is like good common and courteous practice and behavior, people should have. And the Quran doesn't leave anything out. MashaAllah. Yeah, I had a question about 29. You commit no error by entering uninhabited homes where there is something that belongs to you. God knows everything you reveal and everything you conceal. So say, like say it's like a relative's house, or it could be your parents or something, and let's say they're off on vacation or they're gone for a couple days, and you still have some of your old belongings, let's say from years back, that are there. Is that something maybe you should?
I think,
or maybe you should check with them.
Yeah, I think it's referring to uninhabited homes, right? So it's not like you went to work and then now your home is uninhabited or vacation.
Okay, so yeah, it's basically like a vacant home. Like no
Yeah,
one lives there.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because it was kind of like a situation like that one time. I mean, I didn't go, but I was just.
Yeah, I mean that could be a good workaround too. Then it's like you wait till the person leaves the house and then the house is now uninhabited.
Right, because if they just leave the house for a week, I mean, all their stuff is there, the belongings,
Yeah,
possessions,
exactly.
The
Yeah,
way they have
exactly. You still have to
everything.
respect their privacy and everything else. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of interesting, verse 24. I think it's also like maybe in Surah 41 detailed, like it goes into this maybe more, but it talks about people's hands, tongues, and feet will bear witness to everything they've done. Um, I guess in the past, like or the way I've visualized, I mean, I try not to visualize this stuff, but I'm just wondering, like, because I think in Surah 41 it says, like, God will cause their skins to speak up, which, subhanAllah, should make people very careful, like, before making, like, critical decisions and stuff, for people to think about what they're doing, or be mindful. But I mean, even then, it's like we repent and stuff, though I guess that's also for people who repent, that gets witness as well. But I kind of wonder, like, how it would happen. I guess maybe it's the videotape, right? It's not like your hand is going to start talking to you or something, huh?
Well, I mean, I think it's a videotape, definitely for sure. But then also there is a verse in the Quran where they are actually able to speak to you as well. It's like it says, yeah, it's like you ask them like what caused you to speak, and then they respond back to you that God is the one who allowed us to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Are there any other comments or questions from anyone? So I guess maybe we can move on to the off-topic. Huda has a question. It says, during the night you shall meditate on His name, and after prostrating. After prostrating, does this mean after salat? So it's not referring necessarily to salat. People can fall prostrate anytime during the meditation process in general. Yeah, I mean that's my understanding of these verses.
Yeah, same here, because like, how, I guess I think of like the verse that says, sometimes, their body will forsake their bedside and then worship God or something. Like sometimes you might just get out of bed or something and then you prostrate and you do meditation even after that or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Abdullah has an off-topic question. He says, how can we differentiate between admission tests and pinches? So I think like it's pretty. I would say it's pretty easy. Like admissions. Well, pinches are for people who have passed their admissions test, right? People who haven't passed their admissions test, are going to their admissions test. So when you pass your admissions test, you will be, in a state where of perfect happiness, and then when you fall off the path, your pinches are when you temporarily step in and out of God's kingdom. Those are like pinches, right? But they are, as the messenger of the covenant describes it, those pinches are, you still get the pinches when you are, so basically when you have passed your admissions test, right? So let's say someone has passed their admissions test, then whatever they're going through, like small things here and there based on the consequences, they're not admissions tests, right? Because once you pass your admissions test, you're not going to redo the admissions test again and again, right? So at least once someone has passed the admissions test, then they can say, with confidence that when something happens, like out of the blue they get a headache or something like that, that's a pinch, because let's say they already passed the admissions test maybe 2 years ago, right? And now they're living a different kind of life, and so now they know that, okay, this is not my admissions test. Our God already have me past that. These are pinches. But I guess for someone who might be in their admissions test and they're still having pinches in that sense, because you still, if you're going to admissions test, you're still not technically doing everything right. You still have things that you need to work on, that you'll still have to work on even after you pass your admissions test, right? So people will get pinches even while they're in their admissions test, like in terms of consequences for doing bad things. So in those scenarios, and I think your question's probably more geared towards that, right? So admissions test, the way I see it is, like there are a series of tests that are very thorough things like you go through, but like say getting a headache is not an admission test, right? Getting a traffic ticket is not an admission test. Like, okay, like admissions test is okay, something like, you don't have a job, you lost your family, or you got a lot of wealth or things like that, they are actual tests, right? But you getting a headache, it's not a test, right? Like you getting slapped in the face by someone, God forbid, doesn't seem like an admission test, right? Admissions test is like some kind of a series of like thorough situational thing, like lengthy, difficult things you are put through, like the story of Job, right? That's like an admissions test, right? But we should treat everything, especially in that state, as a test. Like even if as you're going through like these things, it's part of your test to think about what you did wrong too, like and reflect on it to see whether you're worshiping God in that situation, whether you're thinking about God, whether you're trying to fix your situation, or you're just going to be heedless, right? So in that sense, that's part of your test, but it could still be a consequence, right? So I think that's like the general idea I see. Like, your tests are these, scenarios that you're put in that are like very testing in its nature, to bring out your true qualities. Whereas you getting a traffic ticket or just waking up with a headache suddenly for missing your prayer just doesn't seem like it could be classified as an admission test. Does that answer your question, brother? Okay, mashallah.
Yeah, so you could also be purified too, like throughout the admission stage, right? Mm-hmm. Like defects, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so also wanted to mention another off-topic thing. So recently, came to my knowledge that there are some people that are actually calling themselves submitters, but then they are extremely offended. If you talk about, for example, the oppression that's happening in Palestine. Because one, like, if there's oppression happening in any place, right? Whether these people are believers or not, if there's oppression happening, and we as a nation or people that are part of that place, are part of it. It makes sense to speak up against it. Like, let's say, if I'm here in the U.S. and like Saudi Arabia is impressing, let's say, some other country, it's probably, I don't care, right? But let's say a country is oppressing another country, and then my country and my money and my tax dollars and whatnot is part of aiding in that behavior and complicit in that behavior, and I want to speak up about it. That's important, because you don't want to be complicit by being quiet, right? Like when God says, beware of a situation where the retribution will not be limited to the evildoers among you. You stay silent and you let it happen. You don't speak up about it. So you're as guilty as those people are, right? And so we don't want to be in that situation. And so it makes sense to say something about it, to share your disapproval of what is happening. If you're in some shape or form could be considered a part of it, right? Because let's say a country as altogether as a group, is funding a certain activity, which in this case is oppression of another nation, then there is some level of responsibility that is involved in reminding the rest of the people that this is wrong, right? I mean, someone could say, yeah, this is political, but it's not political, like, because you're not talking about trade relations or export laws and stuff like that. You're talking about oppression, which is a very religious and moral thing, right? It's like talking about stealing or adultery or whatever else, right? Or homosexuality, for that matter, right? That directly is a moral thing that's part of our religion that we're not supposed to be a part of. So it's natural, yeah. I mean, just giving examples. Just giving an example. I would just, yes. So, like, list of countries doesn't matter. It can be any country. So, what I was saying was, list of countries. It doesn't matter. So it threw me off. Your comment. Sorry. So if, that's important to say something about it. And so recently, I've been seeing, like, every time submitters maybe speak about it, that submitters who are living in a country like the U.S. that is obviously the sole provider of funding for a state like Israel, that is doing this oppression in Palestine, in genocide in Palestine. We have a responsibility to say something, right? To remind our officials or to our people that we are not okay with it, right? That's it, right? Even though we worry about our own selves, we're not okay with it. It's like you're not okay with your relatives committing idol worship. It has nothing to do directly with your soul, but you're letting them know that, hey, I'm not okay with it. And same with homosexuality. If there's homosexuals that are indulging in this type of behavior, you happen to be around them in some way, like you sort of try to talk them out of it. You don't encourage that behavior, by being a part of it. So the thing is that I've heard, like, people came up with this idea that because the messenger of the covenant said submission will prevail in America, and U.S. is allied with Israel, that it makes sense for Israel to do this type of thing, and if you say that what Israel is doing is wrong, then somehow that translates to you being against submission, right? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that's completely satanic. That's like justifying evil with evil. The blindness of these people is absurd, and it just shows their hypocrisy, and like you said, the absurdity for it, because it's. Who are they to say how it's supposed to be done? That's like saying, okay, we're going to force a bunch of people to become submitters by killing them and holding guns to their head. It doesn't have to be done that way. And for people to promote evil in the cause of a quote-unquote greater good, it's just plainly they're just idiots. That's the correct term for them. Because these same people, these that are promoting Zionism, these are the same people that create, profit from pornography. 90% of American pornography are these. Are from the Jewish, the Jewish side. Just Hollywood.
How do you know?
No, this is like Hollywood is.
Yeah, Hollywood.
So
Yeah. Of course, makes sense. Yeah.
So, This is coming from people, Jews within the synagogues. This is they mainstream wife swapping, common law marriages, fornication, homosexuality, pedophilia, drugs, alcohol. You name it. They. This is what they're. So if they're supporting genocide, that's just.
Yeah,
insane.
I think mashallah. I think the problem I have with it all is also like, they're using, for example, someone using what the messenger of the covenant has said in a way that, take it out of context in a vacuum, and then, connect some random dots together, and then like somehow that insulates them from even understanding like simple Quranic subjects, right? So in the Quran, God says oppression is condemned, right? And then you say, because the messenger said, and then when they bring the name of the messenger in and justify these types of things, that actually repulses people from even listening to the messenger, or like people. Let's say people who are excited, or say enthusiastic about helping people in Palestine. There's many people, for example, in the U.S. at this moment, as we speak, that are very, very motivated or moved by what's been happening, because they know for the longest time they've been lied to about a lot of things, and so they're sort of waking up and discovering the Quran and speaking up. So there is this element of a wake up, sort of similar to 9/11 when the Quran became the hottest selling book. It's a time in the U.S. where you see these mass protests, peaceful protests around the country. Students primarily, or not primarily, but a lot of students, a lot of young people, a lot of people from all backgrounds are getting involved, right? And they're being drawn as a result. They're being drawn to Quran and stuff like that, and so they come across submission. And then they hear people like that, saying that we should be like promoting Zionism, and that it is justified. It completely repels them from submission, right? And then people.
I don't think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I don't think they even understand what Zionism is either.
No, they understand. They understand, and they know.
I don't see how they could support genocide. Because if you look into what Zionism is, they can do this to non-Jews. They believe it. It's their sacred law. It's their religion. And so, committing tyranny, depopulation, supporting communism. This is their goal, and this has always been the goal. A lot of people who are informed understand this, and they know this. So to support a type of movement or support the butchering of people. And especially it's worse, I guess, from what I'm hearing, it's they're attributing, or they're taking the messenger's words out of context. Because I'm pretty sure he didn't.
Well, I mean, the messenger never said what they're saying, right? The messenger never said, it's good that the Palestinian people are being are in this state of suffering, or it's justified that, of course, like we understand that, everybody gets what they deserve, and they're not victorious because they're not following God's law. But that's different. But it's the principle of like for example, the messenger says that submission will prevail in America, right? But does that mean that the Americans can go and oppress anybody, right? I mean, indirectly, it's not even, I would say, Israel that would be doing that. Like, it's indirectly the U.S. doing that, right? Because it's funding all of it, right? So does that mean the submission will prevail in America, that I can go and take over Bangladesh and imprison everybody there and start telling my soldiers that they can rape other women and they can steal their land and do whatever?
This is exactly what they butchered, murdered, raped, pillaged during the quote unquote Great Crusades, right? During those the Christian Crusades that happened over however many centuries. They did it all in the name of spreading Christianity, dude. But if you looked at what happened and what really went on, dude, it was nothing but evil and just stealing. And these are the same type of people that would support that. If they don't support that Christian, the Crusades and stuff that's taught in the history books, the butchering and just the idea of slaughtering these people. Then they're hypocrites, and I'm sure they're not going to sit here and agree with something like that. That's very taboo. It's a very taboo subject. But what you see in America is the result of Zionist subjugation, literally of the most powerful nation on earth, and it's prioritizing Israel's concern over the United States. The Americans, the people of this country. So. These are the same people that have made abortion into a sacrament. They're behind unregulated abortion on demand is touted. It's touted in Jewish-controlled media as a positive social good thing for the United States. These people, if they support that, they're supporting their ideology and their factions.
Yeah, it's like, the hypocrites, God doesn't allow them to be guided, and Satan is always able to use them to promote his own agenda and to be an ally of the disbelievers. All the typical signs of hypocrisy are manifested through, people siding with the most evil types of actions, and, it doesn't mean that you're allying with any other, you're not allying with Hamas, or you're not allying with Arabs, you're not allying with the Palestinians, but you're just saying, hey, I'm not okay with my country going and doing something like this to another group of people. This is just totally, fine. Who these people are, it's even irrelevant at that time, right? What their beliefs are, what their nationality is, what their race is, that's irrelevant. But the fact that the principle in the Quran is there, that the oppression is worse than murder, and we shouldn't do that.
Yes.
So we should all be against it, regardless of, the messenger of the covenant actually also talks about in one of the, speaking of the messenger, he talks about in one of the audios where, someone was talking about all these countries, and then he said, God created the earth, and he said that the humans created borders and walls, right? So, a lot of people you'll hear in the media also talk about how we should treat this situation, not as citizens of a country or, with all the political things, but we should look at it as citizens of Earth, people living on Earth. Are we supposed to go and oppress a bunch of people wherever they are, whether they're in the U.S. or wherever other country, regardless of their color or beliefs or whatever? No, because it's against our religion, right? And if you're not able to understand something so simple as that, then that means that, you don't have any access to the Quran, and you're completely misguided, and you're just blind and you're just leading the other people, like I say, the blind leading the blind. Yeah, I mean, and so I mean, to me, this is. I'm only talking about this because it is a religious thing, right? I mean, you're bringing the messenger. Someone's bringing the messenger into this and using it to say that, as submitters, like we should be in favor of that. Like it's completely absurd. And so, I just wanted to highlight that, for anybody who might be listening, that this is what the Quran stands for, and this is what submission stands for. Stands for maximum protection of people's properties and people's lives. Even if tomorrow we go ahead and invade some other country for whatever reason, we're not going to steal their resources, land, their money, and everything, and start killing them. Because we're above anyone, It's
exactly. I mean, even in the times of war, you're not allowed to, there's even, and it just shows how just God is. Like, you're supposed to return, I believe, like a wife to the disbeliever if she wishes to go with them, and you're not supposed to transgress the limits, even with these people. So they can't sit here and say, oh, you're just abusing your power and this and that. But I mean, these people are supporting a group and a faction and a movement that is raping, pillaging, murdering, torturing people, and in the name of spreading whatever cause. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And
it's just giving a bad name to submission.
It is, and it's just interesting how Satan catches these people so easily.
Yeah, I say catching fruit flies with.
Yeah, brother, I don't see nothing wrong talking about the oppression that's going on in Palestine. It's not good. And the Quran teaches us that.
Mashallah.
Inshallah. And plus, like in media and in the commercials, they're making Israel seem like, for the people that really don't know what's going on, they're making them seem like they're doing the right thing, So it's good to talk about it.
Yeah, mashallah.
Mashallah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get off topic earlier when I first started talking about it. That was just stuff I remember reading from Brother Nathaniel, I think, Kapner, who was a pretty high-ranking Zionist Jew himself, and he I guess maybe saw things for what they were, and I mean, he went as far as to, just relaying the reality of this stuff to people. But I mean, the information's out there, but I mean, I guess it's, these things can be tests for people. Like, your situation happens, okay, are you going to stand up and speak out against this stuff, oppression, probably, which is worse than murder, or are you just going to not say anything? Because, it's the same concept, like in the Quran. It's like God doesn't want, these weak people who just sit by and are wishy-washy, and, kind of like it ties into the original, I guess, sin is not, making a firm side with God, not making a firm side with what's right, what's good, versus, and I mean, we even have the verse that in the Quran it says, it tells people to forbid evil, it's in Surah 3, and there's another verse that, and I think in Surah 52, Mount Sinai, that talks about the traits of the believers, like they prohibit evil, with righteousness, they speak out against it, and it talks like, and there's a few others that talk about these are honorable traits, So,
Inshallah.
Mashallah.
All right. Anyone else has any other comments or questions before we conclude? All right. So, thank you all for joining the study. God willing, our next Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. God bless you. God bless you guys.
Assalamu alaikum.